My name is Margaret Hale. I'm 71 years old, and for most of my life, I've been the sort of woman people think they can overlook. I stood in the lobby of the Seabreeze Resort with my hands folded over the handle of my scuffed leather suitcase when my daughter-in-law's voice sliced the air clean in two. "Don't waste your time with her," Vanessa told the young clerk, tapping her card against the counter as if it were a gavel. "She's just the old lady tagging along. We'll handle the reservation." The clerk's smile faltered. She glanced at me as if she'd stumbled into a scene she was too polite to stop. My son, Daniel, let out a small laugh, not cruel enough to be obvious, but careless enough to sting. He rested his hand on Vanessa's shoulder, and in that gesture, I felt a door close. I could have spoken. I could have told them who I was in that very moment and watched their faces change. Instead, I swallowed the heat in my throat and straightened the collar of my cardigan. The marble floor gleamed, the chandeliers hummed faintly. I was not a guest here. I was the woman who had sat with architects and bankers and contractors and argued about every light fixture and line item until the numbers made sense. I knew the bones of this place, how the elevators breathed, how the kitchen found its rhythm at 5 o'clock. Vanessa didn't know any of that. She just wanted a corner suite with an ocean view and extra towels. She wanted the clerk to hurry. She wanted me to disappear. I met the clerk's eyes and gave her a small, steady nod. It was a simple promise. I can take care of myself. "Please have the bags sent up," Vanessa said, sliding the card forward. "And make sure the extra bed is removed. We won't need it." I tightened my grip on the suitcase handle. I had meant for this trip to be a gift, a way to stitch us together in the soft light of summer. But standing there, listening to the small cruelty of my own family, I understood something I had been refusing to see. They had mistaken my quiet for weakness. They had mistaken my age for emptiness. I didn't correct them. Not yet. But I made myself another promise as the clerk handed over the keys and Vanessa swept toward the elevators. Before this week ended, they would learn exactly who I was. The first day moved like a tide I couldn't turn. Vanessa set the pace without ever saying so aloud. She liked the big gestures, dinner reservations, spa times, bags tagged and whisked away. The small things became mine, finding Lily's lost sandals, keeping Ethan out of the sun too long, standing in the shade with a bottle of water while Vanessa posed Daniel under the palms. "Mom, could you hold this a minute?" Daniel asked, pressing a damp towel into my hands and walking away before I could answer. It wasn't cruelty, not the kind that leaves bruises. It was the slow erosion of being treated as if you're made of air. At the pool, Lily scraped her knee and gulped air like a fish. I knelt and held her until the crying softened into hiccups. A lifeguard brought a bandage, and I fixed it neatly, the way my own mother had taught me. When Lily was steady again, Vanessa arrived with an apologetic smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Thanks," she said, as if I'd fetched a refill. "We have a tasting with the chef. You don't mind staying with them, do you?" "I don't mind," I said, and what I meant was, I will not argue in front of the children. Ethan, hovering awkwardly between boy and almost teen, watched his parents disappear toward the restaurant. He didn't say anything, but he didn't leave my side either. I asked him about the book in his hands. He shrugged and told me it was for school. When he stumbled over a word, I let him struggle for a breath, then said it softly so he could claim it as his own. The afternoon stretched. At the cabanas, a breeze moved the canvas walls in a gentle shiver. I took the chair closest to the walkway and pretended to read while the children built a crooked city out of sand and sunscreen bottles. That was where I heard them, Vanessa's voice, low and urgent, Daniel's voice, flat and tired in a way I recognized from the year after his father died. "She's getting worse," Vanessa said. We can't keep taking her everywhere. It's exhausting." "She wanted to come," Daniel said, and I heard something like pleading. "It's just a weekend." "It's never just a weekend," Vanessa snapped back. "We spend half our lives adjusting around her. You know the will, you know what's coming, but we can't wait forever. Daniel, now we have bills. The kids need things. We should be planning, not babysitting." I stayed very still. The canvas wall pressed in with the wind and then released. Vanessa lowered her voice. "If you talk to the attorney, we can at least get a say in her care. A good facility, close to us. She'll be comfortable." "Comfortable," Daniel repeated, like he was testing a word that might cut his tongue. I watched Lily bury a toy beneath a mound of sand. Ethan glanced at me, then away. He was old enough to sense the current, even if he couldn't name it. I ran a hand over the fraying edge of my sun hat and felt a thread give. Something inside me gave with it, a small tearing sound I had ignored before. I thought of Daniel at 9 years old, sleeping in a chair by my bed while I learned to live with the ache of being a widow. I had kept us afloat with a ledger book and a stubborn will. I had taught him that we didn't turn away from each other when things got hard. I stood when the children started bickering over whose tower was taller. I listened to the sounds of the resort, the clink of glass, the low thrum of conversation, the ocean breathing in the distance, and decided I would not be smuggled out of my own life under the word comfortable. Not by Vanessa's impatience, not by Daniel's fear of disappointing her. If they needed to see me clearly, I would help them look. That evening, when the lights along the boardwalk came on and Ethan's freckles stood out against his sunburn, I tucked the children into the fold-out and left a note on the bedside table. "Gone to the lobby. Back soon." I stepped into the corridor with my room key and a steadiness I hadn't felt in months. Mr. Caldwell was where he always was at dusk, in the nook beside the front desk where the brass lamp threw a calm circle of light. He had been with me since the first property, when the carpets were thinner and the coffee was worse. He rose when he saw me, not with surprise, but with the quiet acknowledgement of a man who knows the shape of a moment. "Ms. Hale?" he said softly. "Not here," I murmured, nodding toward the seating area near the windows. We sat together, the ocean unspooling itself just beyond the glass. I told him, in simple terms, what had happened in the lobby and what I had overheard at the cabanas. I did not embellish. I did not dramatize. I gave him facts the way I had handed him invoices for 20 years. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he folded his hands. "What would you like to do?" "I want clarity," I said, "and I want a record of it. I want to know what's being charged to my accounts and who authorized it. I want to know which signatures have been used and when." I drew a breath and let it out slowly. "And I want my family to understand that I'm not a room they can just close the door on." He nodded once and stood. Within an hour, we were in his small office behind the reservations door. He unlocked a file drawer and set a thin stack of papers on the desk between us, recent charges, authorizations, copies of emails forwarded by department heads who had been trying to be helpful, names and amounts, my name, Vanessa's requests, a scan of my signature, imperfect in the way a photocopy of a photocopy reveals its own lie. "I thought as much," I said. The acknowledgement wasn't relief. It was an opening. I called Attorney Fisher and explained, the way I always had with him, using the same careful voice I used for bankers who preferred numbers to sentiment. He asked questions that cleared the smoke out of the room. Had I granted power of attorney? No. Had I authorized any card outside the household staff account? No. Had I confronted them? Not yet. He told me what he would do next and what I should not do, which was to let anger write the plan. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet and let the wave of humiliation pass over me and recede. Grief followed it. Grief for the boy who had learned to be careful with me and the man who had learned to be careless. I pressed my fingertips to my temples until the room steadied, back upstairs. Ethan was awake, the blue light from his tablet flickering over his face. He clicked it off when I came in, as if he'd been caught sneaking something stronger than cartoons. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked. He shrugged. "I was thinking." "About what?" He picked at a loose thread on the blanket. "About how Dad laughed earlier. It was dumb." He looked at me quickly, then away. "I don't think it was funny." The honesty of children has a way of warming a room. I sat on the edge of the fold-out and smoothed his hair back. "Thank you for saying that." "Mom says you don't like help," he said. "But I think you help everybody." I felt the old, familiar ache of being seen at last. "Sometimes grown-ups say things because they're tired," I told him. "Sometimes they say things they wish back later." He nodded, not convinced, but willing to let me have the gentle version. When he slept, I stood at the window and watched the last boats nose toward the pier. In the glass, my reflection looked like my mother's in her 70s, same set of the jaw, same eyes that refused to lower. I whispered a small apology to the girl at the front desk for letting the moment pass. Then I promised myself I would not let the next one do the same. Morning brought the clean light I trust. I left early, before Vanessa could assign me another invisible task, and met with Fisher in a quiet corner of the cafe 2 blocks from the resort. He arrived with his worn briefcase and a face that always looked a little amused, the way men look when they've made a life out of not being surprised. "We'll file a report with the county," he said, sliding a notepad toward me. "Elder financial abuse is a loud phrase. We'll use it carefully. We'll also request transaction logs from your corporate accounts. You'll authorize me in writing. No confrontation until we have it all lined up. When there is a conversation, it will be one you lead, with me and the sheriff's office within reach." I signed where he pointed. The pen moved steadily. This was the part of myself I had missed. The woman who could separate feeling from action and make a plan that did not wobble in the wind. Back at the resort, I found Daniel on the balcony outside the breakfast room, scrolling through emails as if they were the rope keeping him from falling. He started when he saw me and tucked the phone away. A boy again for a flicker. "Hey, Mom," he said. "You okay?" "I am," I said. "Are you?" He leaned against the railing, the ocean behind him doing its patient work. "Vanessa is intense," he said, choosing a word that wouldn't draw blood. "She wants things a certain way." "And you?" I asked. He shut his eyes for a heartbeat. "I don't know how to make both of you happy." The truth of that landed softly. I stepped beside him and kept my voice even. "Happiness isn't what you owe me," I said. "Respect is." He swallowed and nodded, and for a moment I saw him at 12, trying to square his shoulders to carry more than he should. I let the moment be kind. Then I went to find the children because kindness does not fix a bleeding pipe. It only keeps the floor from being ruined while you call the plumber. By noon, Caldwell had what Fisher needed: copies, timestamps, a neat ribbon of proof winding from one decision to the next. I spent the afternoon with Lily at the tide pools, answering her questions about starfish and pretending not to notice the careful way Ethan watched me when Vanessa was near. They were learning the weather of adults. I wanted their forecast to be accurate. Before dinner, a message came from Fisher. The sheriff's office had reviewed what we sent and would issue a summons for a voluntary interview. There would be no spectacle. There would be no cuffs. There would be paperwork and clarity, the two things that make strong foundations. I dressed in a navy dress I'd worn to board meetings and funerals, the kind that doesn't ask for attention and gets it anyway. In the mirror, I saw a woman who had decided to stop apologizing. Vanessa swept into the suite in a shimmer of gold and perfume, Daniel a pace behind her. She announced that the restaurant had prepared a private room for us as if she had negotiated a miracle. I let her have the illusion. Tonight, illusions would do what they always do when the light is right. They would vanish. We walked down together. Ethan slipped his hand into mine at the elevator and released it when the doors opened, but the imprint stayed. The private dining room glowed with a careful sort of elegance. White tablecloths, a low arrangement of blue hydrangeas, the hush of money well spent. Vanessa took the head of the table without looking to see if anyone would challenge her. Daniel pulled out my chair, a habit he'd learned young and not yet unlearned. I thanked him. It startled him a little. How much I meant it. We ordered. We made the sounds families make when they're pretending things are fine. The first course arrived, a cool soup with a fragrant ribbon of basil. Vanessa lifted her spoon and said, lightly, "Let's not bore Mom with the menu. It confuses her." I set my spoon down. My hands were steady. "Vanessa," I said, and her name sounded different when I gave it my full attention. "There's something we need to discuss." Her smile thinned. "Now?" "Yes," I said, "now." I reached into my bag and placed a folder on the table. Caldwell had assembled it with his particular grace, tabs, covers, copies. I opened it to the first page and turned it toward them. Charges, authorizations, an email requesting a card extension with my signature attached, only it was not my signature. It was the ghost of it. Daniel's face drained. Vanessa laughed, a brittle sound. "What is this supposed to be?" "It's a record," I said, "of how I've been paying for things I didn't authorize, and of how my name has been used without my consent. It's also a record of how I've been spoken to in my own hotel." "Your hotel?" She said it like a joke told in bad taste. "Yes." I said simply, "Mine." The room held its breath. Daniel looked at me as if he were seeing me through a window he hadn't known was cleanable. Vanessa's mouth opened and closed, then settled into a hard line. "This is ridiculous," she said. "You're confused. You gave us permission." "No," I said. "I did not. And the county sheriff's office would like to talk with you about that. They'll be by shortly to deliver a summons for a voluntary interview." Daniel flinched. Vanessa went very still. "You called the police on your own family?" "I called the law," I said, "on behavior that breaks it." There was a knock. Caldwell appeared with two plainclothes officers, their presence quiet and professional. They introduced themselves, placed the documents on the table as if they were laying down a map, and explained the next steps in even voices that left no room for argument, no scene, no humiliation beyond the kind people make for themselves. When they left, silence pooled in the room. The main course arrived, an awkward parade of plates no one wanted. Vanessa pushed hers away. Daniel stared at his as if it might tell him how to be better. "I love the idea of us," I said, not unkindly. I loved the idea that my son had found a woman who would make a family with him that made room for me, not out of pity, but out of respect. I don't love what we have built instead. Vanessa stood so quickly her chair scraped the floor. "You can't do this," she said, but the certainty had drained from her voice. "I already have," I said. "The cards are canceled. The house you enjoy on weekends is returning to my portfolio. If you want a life you don't have to apologize for, build it. Don't borrow my name for it." She left first. Daniel followed halfway, then stopped. He looked back at me, a boy again, and then not. "I don't know how to fix this," he said. "You start by telling the truth," I said, "and then you keep telling it when it's not convenient." He nodded and went after his wife. I stayed at the table and let my food cool, not because I wanted to punish myself, but because I needed the quiet that comes after a storm to hear what the sea would say next. The next morning, the air felt sharper, as if the storm inside our family had shifted the weather itself. Vanessa packed in silence, her movements clipped, while Daniel kept the children busy with shoes and backpacks. There were no arguments, no apologies, only a quiet heaviness that followed us down the hall. At the front desk, Mr. Caldwell completed their checkout with the same composure he had always shown me. Vanessa signed the receipt quickly, avoiding my eyes. Outside, the car idled. Lily hugged me first, pressing a sticky kiss to my cheek, whispering that she wanted me to keep the bandage from her scraped knee. I promised I would. Ethan hesitated. Then he walked back from the curb, his backpack dragging. "Grandma," he said softly, "are you mad at Dad?" "I'm disappointed," I answered. "But disappointment can change if we do better." He nodded, as though storing the thought. "Can I come visit you? Just me sometimes? I want to see how the hotel works." I felt my throat tighten. "If your parents agree, I'd love that." He hugged me hard before climbing into the car. Daniel looked at me across the roof, his expression caught between guilt and longing. He lifted a hand in a small wave. Then they were gone. The days that followed brought paperwork and meetings. Attorney Fisher handled the sheriff's inquiries, and I closed accounts that had been left open too long. Each step was steady, not vindictive, just necessary. I also opened something new, a small foundation in my husband's name, dedicated to helping seniors protect themselves from financial abuse. The first thank you letter came on cheap stationery, and I kept it in my desk like a medal. Weeks later, Daniel returned with Ethan. Vanessa stayed away. We toured the back hallways, the kitchens, the service elevator. Ethan's eyes lit with curiosity at every turn. In my office, I showed him an old ledger, the handwriting a mixture of mine and his grandfather's. He traced the numbers with his finger. "How did you know it would work?" he asked. "I didn't," I said. "I just kept choosing the next right thing." When Ethan stepped into the hallway, Daniel lingered. His hands were deep in his pockets. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "No excuses, just truth." I held his gaze. "That's where you start." That evening, I walked the boardwalk alone. The ocean kept breathing, as it always had, reminding me that strength is not in silence but in boundaries, and love survives best when it's honest. I passed the lobby where Vanessa had once tried to erase me and smiled at the clerk who had seen me stand tall. I was still here, not diminished, but whole. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.